Superheroes cannot be allowed to exist. I have no intention to leave my work unfinished.
Long before we had WandaVision on Disney+, Marvel was slowly laying the groundwork for the MCU. It took 11 years and 23 films for the Marvel Cinematic Universe to fully tell its Infinity Saga. And it took 5 years and 6 films for the Avengers to first assemble. But now Disney Plus exists, and the MCU can tell large narratives and assemble teams of heroes in a much shorter time. This allows us to have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings out for consumption at the same time as the Loki series. These are two vastly different projects telling contrasting stories, each with a distinct narrative. We know that Kevin Feige is utilizing Disney Plus to help him tell multiple stories at once. Some of these stories include the Multiverse Saga, Secret Invasion, and the Young Avengers, which are all either happening in the next couple of years or are being set up in the next couple of years. But there's one more storyline that the MCU might also be telling: the Thunderbolts. So who are the Thunderbolts, and exactly how do we think they may pop up in the MCU? These questions and more will be answered in this two-part video, keeping in mind that everything we offer in this video is purely speculation based on the upcoming MCU films and television series. Okay, so we'll start off by answering the question of who are the Thunderbolts. But first, we ask you to take just 2 seconds to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to help us grow. Great! Now let's take a brief look at the comic history of the Thunderbolts in this Cliff Notes version of the Thunderbolts story. Baron Helmut Zemo formed the Thunderbolts as a new incarnation of the Masters of Evil after the Avengers and the Fantastic Four lost to Onslaught. The group took up codenames and masqueraded as heroes, and funnily enough, some members of the group actually enjoyed the heroism. Yes, there's more to it than that, but those are the basics. Bad guys masquerading as good guys. And some of the members who have shown up across various Thunderbolts teams throughout the years include Black Widow, Hawkeye, Luke Cage, Taskmaster, Zemo, Elektra, Crossbones, Bullseye, Ghost Rider, Punisher, and Red Hulk. So those are the basics on the Thunderbolts, but it's looking like the MCU will do things a bit differently than the comics. And that's what we're talking about today. So let's flip through the future of the MCU and talk about who might be on the team and how and why they will assemble. This all starts with General Thaddeus Ross, the military general turned Secretary of State who once spent a really long time trying to weaponize the Hulk. Don't worry, we'll touch on that. Now, funny enough, in the comics, Ross's nickname is Thunderbolt, a name that he has not been called in the MCU yet, but it's never too late for him to start calling himself that. But beyond a name, why is Ross important? Because he's at the center of this Thunderbolt story, and he ties the whole thing together. Let's circle back to Ross weaponizing the Hulk. As always, let's look at the source material. Through the power of gamma radiation, Thunderbolt Ross was transformed into the Red Hulk. And given how badly Ross was trying to weaponize the big green guy in the Incredible Hulk film, it wouldn't be at all surprising that he would want to become the Red Hulk and go toe-to-toe with Bruce Banner. The She-Hulk series does not have a release date or even a confirmed release year, but the show is looking like it'll be a Hulk party with Bruce Banner and Abomination showing up alongside Jennifer Walters. So why not throw in one more Hulk and use the show to introduce the Red Hulk? It seems possible. And as both Red Hulk and Secretary of State, Ross might want to use his power to assemble a team of his own that he can command whenever he wants, instead of having to make the Avengers listen to whatever he says. And after he lends his moniker to name the team, he will have created the Thunderbolts. And these Thunderbolts can serve as the MCU's version of the Suicide Squad. And not just that, they could serve as a more mature side of the MCU. Perhaps throwing them on Disney Plus, or keeping their story separate from stuff like the Avengers, so that people won't miss anything too important if they don't see the Thunderbolts. It is a team that is perfect for more mature content, and thanks to Disney Plus, it's not an opportunity Marvel should pass up. They have the ability and outlet to incorporate darker stories into the franchise. They just need to take that opportunity. Now, let's talk about the team and who might be on it. There have been so many iterations of the team with so many members ever since its original inception. So, who might be on the Thunderbolts? Well, let's take a guess. Number 1 is the most complicated of all, so let's get that out of the way first. Helmut Zemo. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would Ross recruit a villain? Sure, Ross isn't exactly the greatest person on the planet, but why would he want to recruit the guy who broke the Avengers and killed the King of Wakanda? But what if Ross doesn't recruit a villain? At least not knowingly. In the comics, Zemo assumes the title of Citizen V to disguise himself as a hero. He might do this at the end of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We will find out in just a few weeks. But if he assumes the Citizen V identity and Ross recruits him, then Zemo will have successfully made his way into the Thunderbolts. But Zemo might also stay as a villain, and it'll be more like Suicide Squad, where the government tells the villains to do what they tell them because it's easier than dealing with heroes. And speaking of recruiting villains, let's talk about the second candidate. Taskmaster will be making his MCU debut as the villain in Black Widow, a film that Ross is also in. And the Black Widow movie will 100% serve as a partial setup and jumping off point for the Thunderbolts. Taskmaster would be a super valuable member considering his photographic memory and reflexes, allowing him to mimic anyone's movements. In the trailer for the film, Taskmaster replicates the moves of Captain America, Black Widow, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Spider-Man, and Iron Man. And anyone who did the Taskmaster challenges in Spider-Man PS4 should be familiar with the character because they got to do the boss fight where he uses Spider-Man's moves against the player. Okay, so far we've seen possible appearances by Red Hulk, Helmut Zemo, and Taskmaster. Check out part 2 of this video where we'll cover many more possibilities for the Thunderbolts, including one character so extremely far-fetched that it might actually make sense to include him. If you've enjoyed this video, check out the rest of our MCU content, and hit subscribe while you're at it to help us grow our channel. Thanks for watching.